A very good morning to one and all. I, Ms. Chitra S from MMS first year at Visvesvaraya Institute of Management Studies and Research, host for today's international webinar. I welcome all the management students of Visvesvaraya Institute of Management Studies and Research and students of other colleges to SAMARTH Strengthening Minds. Nothing can stop a learner from learning. Only that is required is determination, which can be witnessed today by all of us by gaining knowledge through digital platform. Let us all take a step forward together to become a winner by gaining knowledge from our today's speaker, Mrs. Chitra Sankaran, on the topic staying competitive through tough times. Before beginning with the webinar, I would like to introduce our today's guest speaker, Mrs. Chitra Sankaran, Director, Group Operation Solutions, Credit Suisse AG. She is an IT professional with over 25 years of experience, mainly in banking and finance industry. She joined Credit Suisse in 1997 and started off as a developer in APAC back office team. She currently manages delivery of APAC cross-functional programs within Group's Operations Solutions team. She has a master's degree in computer application from Industrial Institute of Technology, Trichy. This was a brief introduction about Mrs. Chitra Shankaran. I would like to request Professor Narendra sir to enlighten us about the topic, how it is relevant to students. Before that, a small announcement to all the participants attending today's webinar. The attendance code shall be announced at the end of the session, and the feedback forms have been sent to you via mails to avail your e-certificates. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Akshata. Good morning to everyone. It has been raining pretty heavily here in Mumbai, and I hope all of you are safe and enjoy the session today. The topic for today is staying competitive in challenging times, right? And these are indeed challenging times because the global debt toll is rising in COVID-19. Unemployment has increased to record highs. Business is extremely slowly coming back to normalcy, right? So it is taking a lot of time for things to come back to normal, right? And governments, the good news is, of course, that governments across the world have taken immediate action. There is a lot of stimulus packages that have been announced, right? Which is close to 8 to 10 trillion dollars of money that is being poured back into the economy. Keeping that in mind, one of the things that you have to think about is what is the prevalent emotion that you're going through. It is fear and it's a lot of uncertainty. Or to put it more precisely, it is fear from uncertainty that all of you are facing. Even as fresh graduates, one of the biggest challenges that you are going to see further on is how are you going to get jobs, right? And at SVIMS, we pride ourselves at creating managers for the new millennium. And it is more important for us to ensure that students dispel away this fear and uncertainty by giving them knowledge. Because knowledge will help you dispel that uncertainty, become more certain, and be confident about your future. And that is why we thought of creating this webinar series, right, of staying competitive in challenging times, where we are inviting thought leaders such as Chitra ma'am for sharing their industry experience. Today, Chitra ma'am is really at the heart of getting us into the new post-COVID era, right? She's the head of operations, the director of operations at one of the biggest companies that is involved in managing funds and ensuring that it reaches the right people. And she's leading an era that I feel very confident will bring in a lot of innovation for the students. So you don't have to worry. We will probably end up creating the highest number of jobs in history in the coming few decades. Now you may ask me, sir, how are you so confident about it? How are you sure that this is going to happen? Bear with me for a few minutes and I will run you through history, and it will give you a very strong sense of where my confidence is coming from. So let's look back at the year 1957. What was the year 1957 special about? Right. So globally, what happened is that Russia launched its first space satellite. Why is that of consequence, you may ask? It is of consequence because Suddenly, the United States realized that they no longer are safe because of their distance from Russia. Russia could easily launch a missile, a nuclear missile, and strike at the heart of US. So there was a lot of fear, lot of uncertainty. An emotion that you can feel now was exactly felt in those times. And then to add to this, in 1961, the Russians put up a man in space, Yuri Gagarin, if you have heard his name. He was the first man in space, right? And that really got the US into a complete state of panic. And what happened was that it was Kennedy's first year as president, 1961. And what does he say? He says that we'll put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That's a very, very, very historic moment in time. And it becomes more so relevant in today's era to understand why that is important. Because between 61 to 69, 69 is a year when the first man landed on the moon. So they delivered on the promise. In 8 years, the US spent $250+ billion in today's currency terms on getting a man to the moon. That's a lot of money poured in a very short period of time, right, to accomplish a certain objective. Does that resonate with what is happening today? You're feeling fear, there is a lot of uncertainty, and there is a lot of funds getting poured into certain areas, right? You can smell opportunity, I believe, right? So there are going to be a lot of innovations and a lot of job creation. What kind of innovations happened because of 1969? Your entire communication technology started improving. The entire internet era started. The entire computer era started, right? So computer technology started advancing. And then you had the creation of the internet, creation of computer technology, and the banking space got revolutionized because of this. Because imagine this, the velocity of money earlier was restricted by geographies. So for example, here in India itself, in the 1960s and 70s, the situation was such that if say you put up a outstation check, you won't even know the concept of an outstation check, I believe now, right? But if you put an outstation check, the time it used to take for a money to get for the money to reach the person used to be roughly between 5 to 7 days, if not more. So the velocity of money was very poor, meaning it was very slow. And in addition to that, of course, the abundance of money was not there, right? So what happened was that the US learned two lessons from this. A, make a lot of money available. B, make it available at a very quick pace, because that is the one that drives innovation. It is people that create value. It is nothing else. It is people who create value. It is not gold. It is nothing else. So that is why Nixon came up with calling the US currency a fiat currency. What does that mean? Before 1971, for any dollar or any currency that was printed, it was very, very, very important that it be backed by a gold reserve. So you had to have a gold reserve so that if somebody asks you for a dollar to give back gold, they should be able to give back gold to them. What Nixon did was that he separated both of this. He said, okay, from now on, a dollar has value and we declare that it has value. So it is called a fiat currency because it is a currency by force. So what US says is that this dollar has value and you have to accept it. So that resulted in an abundant amount of money becoming available because US suddenly could make a large amount of money available into the system, right? So it became an abundant money supply. In addition to that, there were a lot of innovations that I spoke of earlier, right? You had the computer technology, communications technology, a lot of money went into these areas. What did that result? Your banking became very fast, right? So all of this technology accelerated the velocity of money and all of it resulted in better banking, faster banking for people. Right, and this eventually culminated in a way in 1995, where we had the first internet banking accounts being created and internet banking starting. Right, let's get closer back to India. All of this is fine. This is happening globally in 1995. Probably a lot of you were not even born at that time, right? But 1991, a lot of people among the seniors would know about liberalization. Why was that important? Again, it was a time of lot of fear, lot of uncertainty, hardly any money supply. What did liberalization do? It made lots of money available by opening up the economy. In addition to that, there was a massive amount of investment going into computerization of banks to increase the velocity of money so that it became easy to make money available to people. And in addition to that, mobile adoption started increasing, further increasing the velocity of money. And this resulted in an unprecedented time in history, in India's entire history, because the number of people who came above the poverty line post liberalization has been unprecedented. Other than China, no other country can claim that to have created the maximum number of jobs, and in addition to that, bringing the large number of people out of poverty during this period of time. So right after 1991 is when all of this happened. And what were the two reasons? Abundant amount of money and increasing the velocity of money. And in 2009, we had Aadhaar to enable money to be sent to the right people, reducing leakage and further increasing the velocity. Right. So that is where Aadhaar also came into the picture. Now let's take a step back to 2008 again. Right. So 2008 again, a recession, fear and uncertainty, stimulus packages. What did that result in? That resulted in a $100 billion vision fund called SoftBank. And what did SoftBank do? They went ahead and invested in companies, the ones that you use on a day-on-day basis. You heard of Paytm? You must be using it on a daily basis. There is Flipkart, there is Uber, there is Ola. Where did all of this come from? The Vision Fund, the $100 billion Vision Fund from SoftBank, where they invested in such companies. But another very important revolution is on the way. It is not only SoftBank, but there are other platforms which are allowing you to raise funds. So the availability of money is continually increasing. So for example, Kickstarter. If you have not heard of it, then you must be living in a cave. You got to search for what is a Kickstarter. It is a place where there is crowdsourcing of funds. So you can actually raise funds just basis whatever is the demo of the product that you give, and people will contribute money, and in return, they will get back the product. That is a big deal. It's called crowdsourcing of funds. In addition to that, ICOs. What is an ICO, you might ask? Initial coin offerings. What is the basis of that? It's blockchain. What is blockchain? So blockchain is again an innovation that happened post 2008-9, where a person actually built this entire technology called blockchain, and basis which a lot of these initial coin offerings are also happening. And you know the amount of money that is being generated using that? People are able to literally generate $4 billion in the space of a year. Complete startups who can raise a large amount of money using these platforms. Of course, all of this comes with a lot of risk. If you're making a lot of money available and at a very high velocity, then naturally it becomes the eye for robbers, the modern day robbers, the people who want to take away this money without you owing them any money, right? And that is where cybersecurity also comes into place. Finance and technology are becoming very, very, very closely linked. And that is the revolution that you have to be ready for. I know a lot of you will say, sir, but what have I to do with finance? I'm a marketing major. No, you have everything to do with finance. If you are a person who is a business manager of today's millennia, you can't say that I am a marketing person, I don't want to know finance. It is going to impact you in more ways than you can think. Similar is the case with technology. You may say that, okay, I am a finance person. Why do I need to know technology? You need to know technology. The reason being that is the one that is going to impact you in a very big way in your job, in your existing job. Keeping that in mind, that is why we got Chitra ma'am. So Vasumati ma'am actually thought of these ideas, and she got Chitra ma'am on board. Chitra ma'am very graciously accepted to come for this webinar to share her experiences. Just to give you an history of Credit Suisse, it's a 1856 established company. So it has a very, very, very long history. Just to put it in context, 1857 is when we had our first war of independence. Gandhiji was not yet born, right? It was still 13 years from Gandhiji being born. So it is that old, right? So that's a really old institution, a very strong banking institution, a very well respected institution in the world. And they have over $700 billion of assets under management, more than the forex reserves of that we manage in India, right? So India is around 400 to 500 billion dollars in terms of forex reserves, and what Credit Suisse manages is 700 plus billion dollars. And Chitra ma'am is at the cutting edge of making money available at a rapid pace to people, right? So with that, I would like to invite Chitra ma'am to enlighten the students with her experience in the area. Welcome, Chitra ma'am.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Vasumati, Narendra, and others for hosting me for today's session. It was really good speech, Narendra. I learned a couple of things myself. So thanks for the good introduction. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well and staying safe amidst all the natural and man-made calamities that you are facing in this tough time. Hope you're looking forward to the session. I am really excited to share details about myself and my career journey, with the aim that at the end of it you will get some benefits out of it. A lot of information I will be sharing is completely my personal views, so just a disclaimer: it should not be taken as it is endorsed by the firm that I work for. Um, so with that, let me share the deck straight away. You're able to see the deck now?
Yes, ma'am, we can see it.
Okay. So I think it's a nice picture. Snow-capped mountains just shows us that we have many mountains to climb, but that's also a challenge. That's exciting, and especially if you are a trekker, it just means there are more opportunities. Tying back to what Narendra just told us now. So let me share a little bit more information about myself than what was provided in the introduction. So recently somebody asked me if I have to create a tagline for myself in 3 words, what would that be? And prompt was my response. I had seen it in somebody else biodata, and it really struck me that that's very apt way of saying things. What you are, and that's work in progress. So a lot of information you would see in the slide, in the coming slides, would I would be referring back to the point that we are always continuously, we need to be learning and we need to be updating ourselves, and that's the first and foremost that we need to survive in this tough times before we even think of succeeding. About myself, I did my bachelor's degree in mathematics and master's in computer application. Max being, the basis was a big advantage on both my degrees. And doing accounting as an additional paper in both my bachelor's and master's was an added bonus, which I did realize much later. That it really helped me in my job, and it is helping even today. So take everything in your stride, and every learning and every experience is going to add to your repository of skills that's going to help you succeed. I got an international offer early in my career after being recruited in the campus in one of the leading software consultancy. Within 2 years of my new job, I got an offer from Credit Suisse to work in Singapore. It was quite an exciting time. I had to land in an environment, in a country, little alien culture. A lot of it is Asian, but there is a newness in the culture. I had to fend for myself, find accommodation, and all that stuff. A lot of us go through, and also the nature of the job was very different. Working in a consultancy for almost invisible client is different to working in a real banking environment, where any mistake of yours, any wrong programming they introduce in production could directly impact the P&L of the bank. So that's a huge responsibility, but I love the adventure and love the live environment. It was always, you walk across any retail bank, you always feel that energy, right? People just rushing here and there, and there's a lot of transactions happening. And just to clarify, the Credit Suisse outside Switzerland doesn't do much of retail banking, so I actually work for investment banking division of Credit Suisse. So that's how my career started. Back in those days, all of the IT consultants were recruited more as contractors. So I was in a contracting position with Credit Suisse, but fortunately, within 18 months, I could convince the management to recruit me on on a permanent role, and hence in '98, mid of '98, I became a permanent staff of Credit Suisse. Um, I became an AVP in around 2001, a vice president in 2006, and then I became a director in 2016. So why am I saying all this? It is to tell you on the career progression. There's been many opportunities that has come across my way. Uh, because 23 years in a bank, and a lot of people get shocked with that. I am not completely sure about the age group of this quorum, but a lot of you may not even have been born at that time. Um, there but there has been seniors before me who are still with the bank, so it is just the nature of opportunities that we got, and the culture of the bank really made us not think about moving anywhere else, right? But the progression was not always linear, straight, vertical line, as when I went through the journey. There has been many occasions where I had to make lateral moves, meaning an opportunity that came along which didn't really promise me that there is going to be a title promotion, there's going to be recognition in a year or two of the time. I had to literally start from the scratch. But what got me excited was that there was a lot of it was a new space. It was a lot of learning, and when there is something new happening, there is always opportunity for you to grow professionally. So that's how I took it. But many a times I've realized that the experience that I've gained in those opportunities have helped me to move later upwards in my career as well. So never look at any opportunities trying to calculate whether because I'm starting from scratch, it's going to take years for me to establish myself, and is that worth it? If you feel that's going to give you professional growth, go for it. So that's just one point I wanted to call out there. The other thing is that I have built and managed global teams. Right now, I'm in a very APAC centric role, but in my career, I've literally built teams in Singapore, which has got nationalities, all over from Asia, India, of course, and Philippines, and Indonesia, and Malaysia, and Singaporeans, of course. There's a lot of nationalities. There's a lot of culture, mix of culture, what motivates people differently, their aspirations, and so on. And not only that, I have been a direct report of people outside the region. I've had managers based in other regions, as well as I had teams reporting to me from other regions, namely New York and London, etc. So it's been a truly global team. And while I went through this journey, I learned a few things as how not only impacted or how I wanted to build my career. It also made me think about the people that I manage as to what makes them tick, how do we make that make their career progress as well. So I think with hopefully with all this experience, in the next few slides I go through, you will be able to see how the dots are connected, and how you can leverage that information. Just before we proceed further, I just wanted to share outside work. Primarily, it is work for me. Work consumes a lot of my time, but it is also my passion. Every day when I wake up, I look forward to the day, to work with my team, to learn new things, and so on. So definitely, job is a large part of my working hours. But also, I have a family, two children, 19, who's just finished for the first year in university, and I have 11-year-old who's in grade 5. Outside that, I have some interest in Sudoku puzzle solving. I try to go and look at a lot of YouTube channels that have challenging Sudoku problems and so on. Read books whenever I get time, and that's pretty much what I do outside work. Okay.
Ma'am,
Moving.
sorry for interrupting you. Just a request. Can you put the presentation in slideshow mode?
Sure. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Hope this is better.
Yes, ma'am. This looks
Okay.
great.
Thank you. So when Vasumati approached me on this topic, I was thinking, what should I be speaking? Given some constraints around what I can share with respect to Credit Suisse and its processes, I can't talk a lot. So it has to be generic in nature. But the way that I wanted to give the information is also that, whether it is tough times or regular times, these will definitely benefit all of us, right? So if you look at the career stages to start with, this is a very famous model that, it's very simple. You start with establishment stage. I would also say exploration stage, where you're trying to find or what interests you, where do you want to work. Then comes the advancement stage, where you work to prove yourself and then advance in your career. Then comes the maintenance stage, where you have to retain, and it's as much a struggle as advancement, right? Maintenance, once you reach a certain level, it you need to be in the race to maintain yourself. So that's a maintenance stage. And we'll not talk about withdrawal, which is the retirement stage, which is going to be long time for you guys. So just to give a view of the further slides as to how we would approach each of these stages. Okay, to start with, you're fresh graduates, you need to get into a job, maybe in a year or two, right? And with my experience of recruiting lots and lots of people into the bank, these are some simple rules that I wanted to share with you. It's not rocket science, a lot of you may be aware of it, but it's just good to reiterate the details that, that could be helpful. So, first and foremost, the interviewers look for candidates with the right level of aptitude and a positive attitude. A lot of people put emphasis on just the skills, which is the aptitude, right? Your capabilities. But that's not true. It's not just that alone that can take you till the finish line. It's also the positive attitude, because unless you're in a very specialized skill set, which is very rare in the market, most of us, 99.9% of the time, we need to be working in a team. We need to be working, managing interpersonal issues, and doing a successful job. So attitude is very important. So don't underestimate that fact. Right now you can ask, how do I display the attitude? Because aptitude is very easy. I ask a technical question and the candidate responds, and I can gauge whether the person knows the skill set or not. But how do you display the attitude? The attitude, trust me, also comes through an interview very clearly. Okay, so I would just go through a few simple do's and don'ts that you need to practice. Okay, starting with very simple and effective communication. Okay, you don't have to be a master of a language. Majority of the times it is English where the interviews are being conducted. But whatever the language be, you don't have to be a master, but make sure that the language is very clear and can be understood by the other person. Okay, break it down into simple sentences. Don't go for, like, too long and complex sentences. Allow appropriate pause. That means that don't interrupt when the other person is speaking, as well as when you are speaking, allow some pause, so that it doesn't come out as too rushed response. Yeah. The other one is honest responses. When you don't know, you say you don't know, right? But say it in a very polite and a nice way, but be honest. Okay, don't try to cook up stories that can be very easily seen by the other person. Be clear in what you want in the job. What that means is that you may not initially be very clear. This is probably when you have tried one or two jobs, and then you're trying to switch into a new employer. But even at the beginning, if you don't have a clarity as to whether I want to do this or that, at least have limited choice. And when that question is being put forward to you, you can say it in a way that, I am interested in this role or that role. I think with this skill set, I can do better in this role or that role. And I'm open, so if you are really open to take up either of those roles. So be very clear in your head. Don't go with, a complete set of things that, I can do technology, I can do project management, I can do business analysis, I can do this and that. Maybe you can do it, but the job only is very specific. It calls for very specific responsibilities. So do a research on what the job is and what the employer is offering. Have clarity of thought, and then that also helps you to speak clearly. Okay. And then the last part, when you're going for a face-to-face interviews, dress the part. It's very important. You have to look presentable. You don't have to be jazzed up, but you have to look presentable. So that's the do's. On the don'ts, this is very important. Don't oversell yourself in the resume. Do not include projects that you have not worked on. Do not include technology that you don't have any clue about. Um, don't overstate facts. But there could also be question as to how can I stand out? How can I sell myself? It's very simple. For me, for everyone, you may be associated with something, in your college life, or you may have done an academic project or whatever that you're very passionate about, and you think that will be a good sell for when you're trying to put that across in the interview. Well and good, you can talk about that, but just don't make the topic just about the project. Bring out what you have done, your contributions are to make that project successful. That's very important. It's about you, right? So sell yourself in the way that, that immediately brings attention to the interviewer, but do not oversell by stating things that you have not done. It's very easy to find that out in the couple of questions. If I am the interviewer and I think that, you're sort of being dishonest, or if the person is not have a clue what they're talking about, then that really puts off, and I wouldn't like to continue with that interview. So that's one thing. And the other thing for freshers is it's not a thing, but don't badmouth past employers. That's also is a big no for a lot of people. Okay, now that you have gone through this process and landed yourself in a job, right? Now we're going into the advancement and the maintenance stage of the career. So on the thing, what I would want to call out is there are many rules and many philosophies out there, but for me, the one that stands out is building your personal brand. So, we all have seen branding from childhood. We are exposed to advertisements and stuff like that, where a particular brand is being put across, and certain advertisements are still fresh on our mind, right? And the reason is that they are able to capture what they are trying to sell in a much better way. Okay. So basically they're bringing out the capabilities of their product in a very apt way. So put yourself in that kind of a situation where you have to sell yourself, you have to progress in your career, you have to build your brand. So what I would call out as the first and foremost is, you have to figure out what you want to represent for rest of your life, and not what you want to represent today. This is very important statement. So why? Because if you focus on what you're representing today, it would mean that it is just the skill set, right? I can say I know Java, I may know C++, I may know Python, I may know this and that. But few years down the line, those technology may be irrelevant. You need to have that as well, but what you need to bring out in your brand is what is your capability that's going to help somebody achieve using the skill set that you have. So think of it as in the long term. Your loyalty to the employer, or it could be any of the characteristic that you have, but that's what will represent you as your brand, right? Somebody can say that they can navigate very nicely between technology and the business space, and help both technology and business teams to come together and a solution come out with an innovative solution. So that's a good brand. It doesn't talk about any specific skills, but it talks about what you can bring to the table. So think of it, and as early as you start to think about it, the better for you, because that's going to help you in the long run. Identify what your strengths are, right? Again, the strengths may be related to the day-to-day job that you do, or it may be something that you have that could help the firm in the long run, but it's important for you to identify it. So for example, somebody who's on the sorry, I'm speaking a lot on the technology because I'm from the technology side. They can have some technical skill sets, but what they do not realize now, or they have realized just now, is that they have a lot of organizational skills as well. And trust me, the firm really needs all these skill sets as well, because you have to organize something. You have to organize, a seminar like this sort, or you need to bring the team together for some team building event. It can be anything. There are very few people who are capable of doing that, right? And automatically what happens is, if you have that strength, you become that go-to person for others to come to, because they don't have to go through, it's not very easily available information. So it's very hard to find out who can do that. But what I'm saying is, bring that kind of a strength, be it project management, being it technical, being it organizational skills, being it some people are really good in motivating the teams, leadership roles. It can be anything, but identify what your strengths are, and make sure that's also you look for opportunities to build upon that and display it, because it's important to not just keep it within yourself. It's important to exhibit it as well. So that's where you need to know your target or audience, because then you will need to pick up which skill set and what's the right opportunity for you to display that. This brand statement that I've called out, I help dash do dash is a format that you can follow. So you can say, if I have to say about myself, I can say I help operations to deliver very critical cross-functional projects to be done in an efficient way, innovative technology, etc., etc. And tomorrow, if I actually move into a different organization, I can change my client name, and I may change my usefulness also, in relative terms. That is fine. So this format will help you to put that in perspective. For example, I've just quoted something I took from the internet. I help manufacturing organizations to be more efficient in their operations. Yeah. So this is about branding. Again, start early, keep working on it. It's not very easy to come out with your personal branding, but it also helps you to identify what your strengths are, so that with that you're able to progress well in look for opportunities, display those skill sets, and progress well in your career. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, now career development. So these are the few tips that I would suggest. Establish what you want to achieve in 3 to 5 years, right? Most of us get into a job, we know what has been given to us, and we straight away get on to that. And day in and day out, we keep working on it. We try to do a better job. That's all fine. But if you are very serious about your career, you have to plan. Planning is very, very important. So first, you want to decide what you want to achieve in the near to medium term, right? Because not everybody is driven to progress their career. Some people may say, okay, I'm in it for, whatever reasons, monetary reasons. I wanted to contribute, be productive, etc., etc. That's all fine. Or some people may say, I am ambitious. I really want to grow in my job. So that is fine. So decide for yourself what motivates you and what you want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, and then build a strategy on how to achieve it, right? And that strategy is dependent on three key things. One is skill sets, next is experience, and third, most important, underrated, is people required to get you there. We are all of the mindset that, I think skill sets and experience are very self explanatory. I don't have to go through it. Just on the last part, we all think about, just line managers, I do a good job, my line manager should recognize me and get me promoted. Friends, in this day and age, that doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't mean that your line manager is bad, but that motivation and drive should come from you. Okay. And line manager, usually in a very tough and competitive environment, will have a few other staff similar to you, so you're as good as your competitor is, right? So how do you stand out? A lot of initiative is on you, and what you have to do is cultivate in networking and looking around, finding people who can be your stakeholders, or who can be your sponsors, and you have to drive your work around that, right? So for example, we all have to, as part of our promotion process, we need to find out who our sponsors are, right? And the sponsors are not going to, you can't just approach one senior manager and say, can you be my sponsor? You have to start working for that person in some form or shape. Make sure that your work is meets the expectation of the other person before you even approach and ask the other person if you can be a sponsor. So that is why I'm saying planning is very important, because these takes time, and you have to take your line manager into confidence. When you do this, you have to find the right projects and so on. So planning is very important, but keep this in mind. And the next is, you have to be ambitious, but at the same time, the plan has to be an achievable plan, and you should be able to adapt as well. So when I say achievable, you can have dream big. That's not a problem, but be realistic as well as to what you can achieve, and be adaptable. When I say that, in my career, I have made a lot of switches between. I've worked in many departments. I've worked in many teams, and in certain cases, the career path seemed very clear in front of me. But what happened is the organizational changes happened. Suddenly I had the sponsor I was working with had to move out of the firm. My line manager had to be changed to a different person. The organization wasn't the same anymore, right? Then you have to start from the scratch. You should not be disheartened, but you should be able to adapt and move along. So adaptability is very important. Okay. And keep monitoring your progress either through self appraisals, which is very important. You have to be honest with yourself, but you also seek the 360-degree feedback, which we call as, you can approach many people that you work with, and if they want to be anonymous in their comments, you can ask your line manager to get the feedback from the different people. But go through that process and identify what are the areas that you need to improve, and then work upon them. Finding a mentor is again very important. A mentor outside your line manager who can be very neutral in their views and also can guide you. That's important. And the last one I wanted to touch upon is the professional goals versus title promotion. A lot of people think that career progression is just about getting into the next title or the next promotion. That's not the case. That's not always the case. Title promotion to me is more of a consequence rather than a goal that you need to set yourself to. The goal has to be an objective, to deliver something, to grow professionally. You have to become a better person at the end of that project or the end of that exercise than what you were. And as a result, the titles will come. It will come now, it will come eventually, we don't know. But if you are very, very focused on your title, as I said, the adaptability perspective, you will find in a situation where you have to start from scratch, and then you would rather not take up a project which is not going to give you any professional growth, but has some promotion which is down on the horizon, and that not happening, rather taking up a project which the path to your next career goal may be slightly more tedious and lengthy, but at least you are gaining professionally when you go through that. So decide for yourself what works for you. Again, there's no right or wrong approach, but it's important that you call that out, the difference. Okay, the last one is staying relevant, especially in these tough times. Staying relevant is very, very important. I think we heard about, don't box yourself saying, okay, I am in this course and hence I don't have to be concerned about what's happening in the other areas like finance or technology. Um, that's no longer the case. I think with the advent of fintech, there's a lot of changes happening. The banking will look very different in the few years time. There's a lot of changes happening, so you have to stay relevant, and these are some of the tips I would say for you to stay relevant, right? You have to constantly upgrade, keep upgrading your skills. It is it's a race. If you want to, as long as you have a career, you have to keep continuously upgrading your skills. Okay. Learn something new every day. And one tip I would provide is that I took this from one of my colleagues who used to end of the day sit and write what is the new thing he learned on that day. So that helps you being more disciplined about that. And trust me, we learn so many things every day. It's not that there'll be one day where we haven't even picked up one skill. Every day we pick up many skills. It is just about consciously seeing whether that skill helps you advance where you want to get to, and then making sure that you keep at it on a regular basis. So upgradation of your skills is the first and foremost. Get out of your comfort zone. A lot of us do that in the 1 year, second year, third year of the job. We tend to become comfortable, and that what we call is the fire in the belly is no longer there, because why take tension, right? Why take tension and get out of my comfort zone? That's what majority of the people ask. But if you don't do it yourself, you may find somebody else doing it for you, which is very unfortunate. So constantly challenge yourself. If you think that it has become things are getting monotonous, you have to do something different that's going to make you not feel monotonous. Know what is happening in the industry. Again, as part of the, it's what's similar to the upgrade. It is just that being aware of what's happening is very important. Sometimes it is what we call as the writing is on the wall. Sometimes it is not. But just go through some some websites, some manuals, whatever that can help you be in touch with your industry. And the other way we can do it is also through networking. Network with your own peer groups inside the firm, but also take time to network with your with people who is not necessarily in the same bank or in the same firm, but in the industry or sometimes even outside industry. We never know how things can connect, right? So build your networks and keep maintaining at it. And I would especially call this out for the female students. We tend to sort of become more engrossed in our day-to-day jobs and your family, etc. But I definitely call out that once you all start working, at least take a lunch off with your colleagues that you don't deal with on a regular basis, and try to know what's happening in each other's departments and try to be connected. That definitely helps. Okay, the last but not the least, be flexible to adapt. Again, changing times, we don't know what will come there. So you have to be flexible to try different things. Your job profile may change very differently, but be open, be flexible to adapt, learn and unlearn as required. So in the technology space, I'm not sure if this information is widespread. We generally do things in a very waterfall methodology, where you go through different stages of software development. But things are turning rapidly. Agile development and DevOps are some of the concepts that are out there, that's changing things rapidly, changing the skill set requirements of people rapidly. So you have to sometimes unlearn what you know so far, so that you can start learning new things and be flexible to adapt to the new requirements. So that's a key. I think that's the last of my presentation I want to talk to. Again, a big thank you. I know there is a Q&A session after this, but thanks again for the opportunity. And hopefully you got some benefits out of this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was an effective session. Before beginning with the question and answer round, I would request a gentle reminder to all the participants that the attendance code would be revealed at the end of the webinar, so that you can fill the feedback form and avail your e-certificates. Ma'am, let us begin with the question and answer round. The question stays from our audiences. First question: what is your advice to a fresher graduate MBA wanted to build a career in the space of banking and especially operations in banking?
Um, okay, operations is a very wide space within the bank. So again, where I'm talking more from an investment banking perspective, there are many functions within the bank, and I think it's best suited for for a degree like MBA, which is more of generic skills and business management, etc. That would definitely help. So all the way to call out some of the functions, like we do trade validations, we do reconciliations, we do network account management, we do settlements, which is the heart of any investment banking operation. We do asset servicing, which is all of the managing the corporate events and the coupon processing and all that. So there's many functions which just requires a lot of analytical skill set and banking knowledge. So I think for especially this audience, I think operations would be a very good space to start with and grow. Um, Other than that, I don't think there's any particular advice apart from all the advice that you heard from me just now.
Okay, ma'am. The second question is it important for MBAs to learn programming to enter into IT operation space? If yes, which language would you suggest one should pick up?
No, I don't think it is necessary. It is definitely an advantage if you know of any programming language, but I wouldn't call it's necessary. Again, operations a very generic space. You definitely need a banking knowledge and accounting knowledge to be successful, communication skills and all that, and analytical skills. It's very important to be successful. On the IT side, I think knowing things like robotics, because a lot of robotics is being used in operations lately, especially in operation space, would be an added advantage. If somebody is interested in a programming language, I would suggest Python, because that's simple. So that will be a good addition as well, but I wouldn't call that as necessity. I work with my operation colleagues day in and day out, and I see that they are able to survive without the technology knowledge, but definitely having an additional skill is going to make you stand out. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose Akshata got disconnected. Let me pick up the next question. The question is, what are the key biggest changes you have seen in the usage of IT in the banking space in the last 10 years?
The last 10 years. I would say the internet banking, digital banking is the biggest change. I would say it is changed traditionally. Not only in the investment banking, but more so on the retail banking as well. So digital banking, not just retail banking and investment banking, in private banking as well. We do a lot of digital banking with our the key clients. So digital banking is definitely been the biggest change. Um, the other is not really technology driven, but I think all of the regulatory controls that we are seeing from the various regulators, it's a more controlled regime, I would say, for the good reasons. Obviously, with such disruptions, we need to have those controls, but that's changing a lot the way the banks are dealing with things. So I would say that these are two main areas which has changed the landscape of banking quite a lot.
So the next question is an interesting one. The audience is asking, how do you see it, the IT usage changing in the coming 10 years? So they are asking you to take a leap into the future, and that to 10 years.
Right. It's hard, a little hard. You don't have the crystal ball, but I think we're seeing a lot of innovation happening with from a technology perspective, the distributed ledger platforms, what we call as DLTs, and the blockchain. We have to wait and see how that's shaping up. There's a lot of interest. There is a lot of proof of concepts that are going on, but it also needs to be adapted widely before we can say that that's going to drastically change things. Internet of Things is definitely creating a lot of buzz in the finance industry. So there's a lot of innovation out there that are being tried right now. Now, for it to be making a big impact, it means all the stakeholders need to get onto similar platforms, because it is not just about one bank changing things. It is about the custodians, the exchanges, the whole set of stakeholders need to be adopting to similar technology, which is why I'm slightly hesitant as to the time frame that you mentioned. But definitely, I think with all the disruptions we have seen, especially in the post-COVID world, this will pick up speed now. Yeah.
The next question is, any interesting
So, ma'am,
applications you have seen on the blockchain space, blockchain in the banking space?
We are trying a few things, especially the Singapore government is also encouraging the consortium of banks to try a few things. So just to give a bit of background for people who may not be very familiar with the concept, the distributed ledger technologies is what is the wider platform before we get into blockchain. So, for example, right, if a client approaches to buy a particular stock with the investment bank, the investment bank acts as a broker dealer. So it would either go to the market to get the stock, or it would try to get it from the exchange. And then once the stock is secured, then it has to be delivered back to the client, and the payment goes the reverse way. The client pays you with a commission, then you have to pay some of it to the exchange, and so on. There's so much of touch points in this whole operations, because you don't deal directly with the banks. You deal with the custodians. Basically, the custodians are the ones who has a repository of all the securities. So the client custodian reaches out to the investment banking custodian. The investment banking custodian works with the exchange custodian, and then when the money has to be transferred, is between the client account to the firm account to the exchange account, and so on. A lot of touch points. And right now what we do is we centralize things at one database. So basically, within my bank, you will have a central database which will have the transactions coming in and going out. um, but just imagine, because my number may not tally with what the exchange has, my number may not tally with what the client's custodian has, and you need to do a different set of reconciliations. And sometimes what happens is all these reconciliations happen the next day, and if you have a discrepancy, you need to try to trace back as to where the issue came from. And sometimes it could be too late because you can have the same day settlements also happening. So in all these cases, that's where the distributed ledger technology will make a very powerful statement. So what we are saying is that the data is not going to be centralized in one place and with one every participant. It's going to be distributed across the major stakeholders. So when the information comes in, it comes across to all the stakeholders. Obviously, it'll be in using some cryptology, and it will also have some sequence of information which will help you to tie back. So what happens is that the data is not stored in the respective databases, which is distributed, until both the parties agree on it, right? So between me and my client, there should be an agreement that yes, these many securities are received and this is the money that's been transferred before the transaction can be called as a call to a close. So I'm just giving an example of how tedious this operation is and how DLT can change things. Now,
Okay.
blockchain is one aspect of the DLT where it is just a slightly different technology where data is being distributed in a chain of blocks. The data is in a block type, so it has a link to the previous block has a stamp of the current of the participants information, and then when it goes to the next destination, it'll have the information of the latest participant, but you'll be able to trace it back using that the block reference back to the previous transaction. So you can see a sequence of information, so it's all very transparent, very efficient. But again, as I said, all the stakeholders need to be engaged in receiving the information and transferring the information. There were some pilot projects being done on the Singapore side as well, for the interbank payments, basically. The domestic payments, basically Sing dollar payments. And we all know, right, if you have to transfer money from one bank to another, even in our daily lives, it has to be first reconciled at your bank, then it has to go and be reconciled at the receiving bank before you go there and withdraw money. So this all takes days now. Even today, in today's age, that takes days. So with the distributed technology, it should be all very efficient. And blockchain is one such way of doing things. Yeah, there is a lot of interest and pilot projects being tried out right now.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thanks for the elaborate answer. The next question is related to cyber security. Probably, meaning what are the challenges you see there, and how is it impacting your space? As common citizens, of course, it affects us through malware and whatnot, right? Meaning, what do you see the challenges there, and any advice you want to give people using internet for their banking transactions?
Yeah, again, I'm not very familiar on the retail banking space, but I can tell you what we are doing about it. So there is a lot of and especially we have seen an explosion of this the cyber security breach happening right now, because in this troubled times, there are a lot of people out there trying to break the system and trying to take advantage of this situation. So we have seen an explosion of such things happening. So there are two ways of handling it. One is basically you have firewalls with every firm has a firewall. Not any information can be come across from the external world just like that. There's a lot of phishing opportunities. I think all of you are aware of it. They try to get somebody's contact, somebody's email ID, and use that to enter into the system. And they ask you to click on a link. And it could be, it's so innovative. I heard somebody saying that there was one link that came in recently which said, learn about all the COVID related statistics near your place. And naturally, people are very anxious in this time, and the first thing the person did was go and click the link, right? We should not do that. We should all refer to the government sites and whatever is the secured source of information to get all that information. But yeah, so these kinds of things happen, and the minute they click on the link, that means your account is validated. So they use your account to send to multiple other accounts and so on. So at a at a firewall level, there is a lot of restrictions as to what's coming in. There is a constant education being done to the employees. We have to go through every quarter some compliance training where we all have to go through courses how to be aware of such things, such attacks, not to reveal any information to anybody. And people calling you say, I'm this from this bank and that bank, and I need to do this. Do not trust any of it. Go to the bank, or go to, if you're a privileged customer, go to the RA who's assigned to you, so you can transact through that the person relationship managers. And the other side of things is that there is a lot of scrutiny from the regulators as well, right? There is, especially after the unfortunate event in Bangladesh that a lot of you may be aware of, few years back, where millions got transferred out. There's been a lot of emphasis by regulators around the world, and especially in APAC, where they ask you to tighten your controls around the access related securities. Um, and RBI has even announced the auto dormancy. That is, if somebody is not used the system for more than 3 months, their access should be removed, because there is a possibility that person is no longer there, and their user accounts can be misused and so on. So there's a lot of regulations being imposed by a lot of APAC regulators, that will help hopefully be more secure in future.
Thanks, ma'am. A couple of other questions. So we have time for probably another three questions. So the first one is, uh, what is any interesting applications of artificial intelligence, machine learning you are seeing in the space and being increasingly adopted?
I spoke about robotics. Robotic uses a bit of AI as well. So robotics we are using to automate a lot of things in operations. For example, we have something called a pre-matching process, where the custodian can, through the day, send you the matching instructions, and these happen during the day before the security is finally settled. So there are certain things around it, and if the matching does not happen, then you have applications that sends out emails, etc. So there's a lot of automation happening around robotics. A lot of our level 2 support and level 1 support activities, which is all very mundane. If the batch stops running, if the job stops running, the alerts are being created, alerts are sent to the right people, so that we know something is wrong in production and act immediately. So there are many such instances where robotics is adopted. And we have also changed the way that all the queries, IT infrastructure support related queries. We used to go to a group of people before and raise concerns. Now that's been handled by software like Amelia's and Series, and it's called different things in different places. Where what happens is, the more query that you put, right? So, for example, I'm not able to connect to this printer. My network is not working, or my software is not been registered, whatever be it. The software automatically keeps building its database based on the queries that comes and the answers it's able to provide. So it is actually learning on the job, right? That's based on the artificial intelligence technology. So yeah, we do adopt quite a bit of it, not on the mainstream processes, but around the support processes. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the second last question is a follow-up to this one, that will IT make people redundant in banking, which is so human resource dependent, right?
I think this is an age-old question, right? When the software came, this question was, that's is just going to replace people in the manufacturing sections when machines were introduced. Is it going to make all the people redundant? It Therefore, no reason it's called disruptive technologies, though they do disrupt, the way that things were being handled previously. Um, but I wouldn't say that the humans can be fully replaced. So we should make sure this technology is put to the best use. Obviously, we need a lot of people to create the technology in the first place, and there will always be innovations around the technology, which means that we need more people. So we need to be conscious of what it is, and we need to be, again, use all of the capabilities that I spoke in the deck. Be adaptable, be open to learning and all that. But no, I don't think it's going to be ever replacing all the people that we deal with.
Yeah. I think we will be able to squeeze in a couple of questions. So one is IoT. So Internet of Things, is it getting applied in the banking space? Any interesting things that you see?
Not that I'm aware of. So not in my space of work. But I've heard a lot of things being said about Internet of Things, right? In terms of it is just devices being connected together using internet, right? So interestingly, I heard one analogy recently that you're driving in a car, the car is able to speak to you back, meaning there is this voice recording and asking if you have to stop in between based on your calendars that you have set up, the directions you need to take. It can tell you whether so and so food is expiring in your in your fridge if you start recording all the QR codes and everything. It can tell you that your credit card balance is coming up for payment. So there are a lot of things can be connected, and it's definitely going to be a very different world when this all comes together. Especially what I'm reading is, the it's going to be a major player in the fintech world. But we need to see again how that evolves.
Okay, ma'am. The last question actually is a question from the audience, which is more related to job opportunities in the investment banking space. And any advice on that? How can potentially an MBA explore this space?
Um, Definitely, I think all aspects of investment banking, like be it front office, be it middle office, be it back office. When I say back office itself is quite vast. We have reference data management, we have operations, we have finance, which is all the ledger books and records and MIS. There's a lot of areas where MBAs would definitely be playing a good part. Um, so I think investment banking is probably the best suited for this group of people. Yeah.
Uh, Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your responses. I will now hand it over to Mani sir for giving the vote of thanks. Mani sir, request you to unmute your mic before starting.
Okay, good morning everyone, and good afternoon to Madam Chitra Sankaran, who is speaking from Singapore. Thanks very much, Madam, for making yourself available at short notice, and it was an information-packed and information-rich webinar for close to 1.5 hours, and lots of learnings. You touched upon various aspects, right from human resource to interpersonal relationship, personal effectiveness, banking, the IT space, the regulations, etc., etc. So lot of information, and personally it was a good learning experience for me, and I believe it would have been a good learning experience for the participants as well. So thank you so much, madam, and we appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And Narendra sir, thank you so much for for a wonderful introduction, the opening comments, the opening remarks. Okay, giving the historic perspective of all things that happened. Okay, and it was a very good introduction. And thank you, Akshata, for welcoming the guest and introducing the speaker to the audience. And Dr. Vasamati, madam, for putting everything together and having Mrs. Chitra Sankaran here at a short notice. Thank you so much. And I take this opportunity to thank our director, Dr. Purushottam Patil, and our trustees, and all the team members who made this possible, so that we could have a very good session with Madam Chitra Sankaran. And last but not the least, the very enthusiastic audience who have registered in very large number. I think the figure is around 230 participants or so. I mean, which in itself is a record of sorts. So thank you, everyone. And I, on my behalf and also on behalf of SVIMS, thank everyone for this wonderful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's really nice talking to all of you. And thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, I would be announcing the attendance code. The feedback form will be open only till 11:40. So the attendance code is SC0001. I would repeat it again. The attendance code is SC0001. I'll repeat it for the third time. The attendance code is SC0001. And the feedback form would be available only from now till 11:40. So I would request everybody to fill it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.